afternoon. Thank you so much for joining the American Parkinson's Disease Association for Caring with Confidence, a new series designed specially for adult children of people with Parkinson's disease. This is our first episode, Self-Care While Supporting a Parent with Parkinson's. And I am so pleased to introduce our fantastic guest speaker, Lianna Marie. She is a best-selling author, speaker, and a passionate advocate for the Parkinson's community. For almost 30 years, Lianna served as caregiver and chief cheerleader for her mom, walking her through every stage of the disease as they learned and adapted together. Determined to make the journey easier for others, Lianna founded allaboutparkinsons.com, an online hub that has connected tens of thousands of people with Parkinson's, their families, and caregivers worldwide. Lianna currently serves as the American Parkinson's Disease Association Regional Director of Marketing and Communications, helping advance awareness, education, and support for people impacted by Parkinson's. Her first book, Everything You Need to Know About Parkinson's Disease, has reached readers in nearly 50 countries and spent multiple weeks on Amazon's Parkinson's bestseller list. Additional books include Everything You Need to Know About Caregiving for Parkinson's Disease and The Complete Guide for People with Parkinson's Disease and Their Loved Ones, along with an upcoming release, The Parkinson's Path, your guide to finding hope, happiness, and meaning on your journey with Parkinson's. With that, I will turn it over to Lianna. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Anushka, and thank you for that warm welcome. And I'm so glad I could be here to kick off the Caring with Confidence series. This is a new series. I'm really excited to share this with you out there. But before we dive in, I do want to acknowledge those who've inspired me to talk with you today. So here's some pictures of my mom and Dave. But first I'll say mom, her name is Val. She lived with Parkinson's, like Anushka said, for 30 years and dementia for 8 of those. She taught me a lot about both diseases while I lived with her and about being a better advocate, about being a better care partner. And she also taught me a lot about the importance of boundaries. My mom is the why behind everything I do for the Parkinson's community. She's the heart behind every page in my book and the talks that I'm giving today. The second person who inspired me to do this Caring with Confidence series is Dave. He was my mom's second husband, and he also cared for my mom and did his best to navigate Parkinson's without a map. He was the impetus really for me becoming an advocate for the health of care partners and taught me a lot about what burnout looks like. And finally, this talk is inspired by you, the adult child care partner, many of whom I've last 20 years with my work at All About Parkinson's. And honestly, for many years, I thought I was just an island, out on my own, that there was no one that could relate to me as the experiences I had as a daughter of someone who had Parkinson's. But slowly but surely, you came out of the woodwork, and I am so glad you did. As it turns out, because actually, as it turns out, there's a lot more of us than I thought. In the US, more than 1/3 of Parkinson caregivers are adult sons and daughters. This is according to this 2025 National Alliance for Caregiving report. And I found this really interesting when I read that because of how few resources I find there are for people like us. I'll admit that most of the talks I've given typically attract spouses of PWPs. So again, I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to speak with you today. Also, according to that same study, and I think this is a good reminder for the additional weight that Parkinson's carries, caregiving for Parkinson's, I should say, caregivers of people with Parkinson's provide more intensive, longer lasting, and more complex care than caregivers for many other conditions. So give yourself a pat on the back. My apologies, my slides are going a little faster. Adult child care, as you know, you have a unique care in unique role in caring. So while you're supporting your parent, you probably become the glue, holding things together in your world. So your parents' changing needs, you've got your own work, your family, plus a healthcare system probably that's expecting you to keep everything going. You might be raising your children, managing a career, living at a distance, like I did it for some time. And yet you find yourself pulled into all these medical decisions and home safety planning and providing emotional support, all while Parkinson progresses. And unlike spouses, though, you're often balancing caregiving along midlife responsibilities like and financial pressures, all those things, disrupted work hours, altered career paths, et cetera, et cetera. So all that to say, um, you are doing an act of love. All that I just mentioned is an act of love. And it's also an ongoing negotiation of boundaries, figuring out how to stay present and involved without losing your own health, identity, or future in the process. And as Brene Brown so eloquently says, daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others. Now, I don't think we struggle with boundaries because we don't understand them. I think we struggle because in Parkinson's, disappointing someone can feel unbearable at times. And when the person you're caring for is your parent and the disease is progressive, saying no can feel like you're failing them. I think of many aspects of me and my mom's life as before PD and after PD. I don't know about you, but before PD, boundaries were like time, logistics, and I didn't have to think about yes or no. And then after PD, I learned that boundaries were as much internal as they were external. Um, that's a lot because Parkinson's doesn't just ask one time, it asks over and over and over again. And over time, many of us stop setting boundaries. It's not, again, not because we don't need them, but because we don't want to live with the guilt that comes after. So what I've learned both as a daughter and through this work is that boundaries in Parkinson's aren't about doing less. They're about doing what's sustainable so love doesn't burn out, right? They're about clarifying what you can do and can't do. They're about acknowledging that you're only human and about helping us keep that mom-daughter relationship instead of, you know, caregiver, care receiver. Boundaries start with basics. There's just protecting your basics. I know this may seem obvious, and I feel like I really need to talk about this because when you're in the thick of caregiving, it's surprisingly easy to give these things up. Sleep, food, movement, connection, none of these should be up for debate, right? You need these just as much as your parent does. And I wanted to highlight sleep for a brief moment here because I think this is one that especially people don't take very seriously. Now, sleep isn't optional. I think we all intellectually understand that, but it's a biological necessity for your brain to repair itself. It clears its waste and keeps you functioning, okay? This is a neat Substack that Michael Okun recently did and talks about the glymphatic system, which is the brain's cleanup network. It becomes highly active during deep sleep. And that is what removes that metabolic waste and potentially toxic proteins like misfolded alpha-synuclein, which is central to Parkinson's pathology. So sleep is not only good for the person with Parkinson's, but potentially, if we have poor disrupted sleep a lot of the time, this is allowing for us potentially to develop a neurological disorder like Parkinson's as well. So very, 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 very important. And one of the things that I've actually found lately found really helpful for myself is just tracking my sleep. I have a smartwatch. Many of us have smartwatches. I use my Samsung Galaxy, and I set it at night, and I wake up in the morning and I see how much REM did I get, how much REM sleep, how much deep sleep did I get, and setting goals to get better and better at that every night. So, as you know, shifting gears here, there's many symptoms of Parkinson's, tons and tons and tons, many that are invisible, right, to the public or misunderstood. For us, anxiety, apathy, facial masking, cognitive changes, those were some that impacted us, may impact you as well. And when my mom had dementia in particular, say, for example, we were out shopping, I found it really hard not to explain to others her behavior. I just, I for example, we'd be out shopping. I'd be pushing her wheelchair through like the women's clothing section. And she just wanted to stop and touch everything. She loved the tactile, like touching all the clothing. Sometimes she'd put up against her cheek. And the thing was, she was never being disruptive. There wasn't anything she was doing wrong, really. I was just really self-conscious. So I just wanted to apologize for that. And eventually I realized I just needed to be more honoring of her and just be in the moment and enjoy that simple pleasure of shopping with her. Another time, many times this happened, was we'd be out in public and mom would experience freezing of gait. You probably know what that is. She just needed extra time, right, to get going again. And I found myself always wanting to apologize for that. And like, I'm sorry, I got in the way, she got in the way or whatever. And, it took some time before I realized, it was, again, not disruptive. Sometimes people are impatient, but you know what? I learned over time that I had to let go of what other people's expectations of what we should look like, to honor my mom's, pace and her space as well. This one, PD versus life, huh? Boundaries, this boundary is extremely tough, I think, for many people. I think it's really easy to let your life take the back seat because, well, of course you would. It's your mom, it's your dad. After all, they gave up everything for you growing up, perhaps, and it's your turn, right? I think of, are there opportunities that you may have missed because Parkinson's? I think many of us would say yes. But were these because you thought you had to or you needed to, right? You know, are we asking ourselves that question, what happens if my life matters too? Can we give ourselves permission to live beside Parkinson's instead of underneath it? And that's just a question for you to ponder if this is something that you struggle with in your life. One thing, it's a simple little thing, but can make a big difference, I think, if you've lived with someone with Parkinson's or any other in any other area where you need to set a boundary. I found this early on, just someone told me about scripts and just having something in my head that I could repeat when I was asked to do things that required, in this case, time. And saying, I wish I could do that today. I can do this on such and such a day, or I can stay for 30 minutes when someone's saying, can you come for the afternoon? My mom says, can you come for the afternoon? And it turns up ending to be the whole day. You know, again, you have to find what works here, but it's just something to suggest to have a script for you ahead of time when you are trying to set a boundary. Now, this one, if you have a parent in a care home or they're, potentially someone like in my mom's case, she was at a nursing home for eight years, 4 different ones. These are some things that can help reduce neglect, which is something that my family dealt with. Again, setting boundaries within care homes is a little tougher. I certainly didn't have a lot of confidence when I first started dealing with staff at long-term care where my mom lived. But over time, I learned things that worked. using that thank you script, like always saying thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you giving my mom's every hour or every 3 hours as you know that she needs. Could we also work on not rushing her in the morning? Because as you know, she's a little slow to get going when her meds haven't kicked in yet, for example. So using again those scripts, building an inside ally was a really, really key piece for helping me with boundaries. Just and again, these are in care homes when I didn't know I didn't know a lot. I was just fumbling a lot of the time and finding someone who I could confide in. There was always it seemed to be always one or two people that understood my plight and that really made a difference in getting progress as far as my mom, things that I wanted for my mom's care. And just kept practicing to be her advocate. Now, I laugh at this slide, but I had to include it. Boundaries involve saying no without guilt. Haha, because do you know how many times I've heard that I needed to not feel guilty for saying no? That's a lot easier said than done. However, I found reframing did help me over time. I'm not giving up. I'm not abandoning her. I'm not, all those words that come into my head. I'm just preserving my ability to keep showing up. It's this is a long game. Parkinson's is a long game, right? So remind yourself of that, and maybe that helps you say no a little easier. Before we move on, I do want to pause here because this part really, really matters. When we talk about boundaries in Parkinson's care, we often think about things like schedules and appointments and logistics and that kind of thing. But some of the most important boundaries are the ones that no one ever sees. It might be that boundary you need to set for how much you worry at night, which that's Lianna, that's tell you that right now, or how much you replay conversations in your head, how much of your identity becomes wrapped up in the disease, huge one. Not every limit needs this big announcement. Not every boundary needs to be justified. You don't owe, and listen to me, you don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your emotional capacity, especially in a disease that asks for so long, so much over time. Parkinson's care boundaries aren't about doing less for your parent. It's about making sure you can keep showing up without losing yourself in the process. Exhausted, drained, worn out, spent, burned out. These are whatever you want to call it. These are things that I hear about all the time from care partners, how they talk about their emotions when it relates to burnout. And if you're feeling this to the core right now, here's an idea that helped me understand why. This is from Burnout, Emily and Amelia Nagoski book. Emotions are tunnels. If you go all the way through them, you get to the light at the end. So exhaustion builds when we get stuck, right? And recovery means like it asks us to go through, to let that grief, to let that fear or frustration crest and pass instead of keep shoving it down. I love that quote. As a reminder, for those of you who need one, here are just some signs of burnout. And again, the progressive nature of Parkinson's means you're constantly adapting, right? I don't know about you, but that was us all the time. Something new would show up, a new symptom, a new struggle, something that mom, we need to figure out, right? So it's always going, always going. And that means you're always adapting. And especially in the late stages of Parkinson's, it's like a nonstop operation, right? You're managing meds, appointments, chasing answers through systems, carrying that emotional load and losing sleep, right? Some of you may play a nurse, therapist, and advocate all in the same hour. So take a look at some of those signs, be honest with yourself and identify if any of those are you right now. The slow burn. So in Parkinson's, it's this accumulation, right? It's not one thing, not one bad day, not one crisis, not one mistake that you make. It's just a slow accumulation of load over time, right? With Parkinson's, it's small things that add up, and it's not failure, it's just an accumulation. And what that might look like, for example, in Parkinson's, could be any one of these things, right? Some of which could be, medication reminders, constant level, low level worry about your parent falling, and repeated appointments and paperwork, and adjusting your plans over and over and over and over and over again. Again, with that emotional weight that no one else sees, and never fully really just letting yourself exhale because it just keeps going. And none of these on themselves would break you, but together, over years and years, they wear you down. So I wish I'd learned about that emotional being tunnel thing during my mom's years in nursing homes, because I spent so much energy outrunning my feelings, in particular fear, guilt, a lot of sadness, and even a bit of resentment. And I use that stuffed turkey imagery, not just because I used overeating as one of my coping mechanisms when I was overwhelmed with my life and with my role in my mom's life, but also because of all the stuffing of feelings I did. And I just didn't have, I'm like, I can't do that right now. I gotta stuff that down. I don't have time. I don't have I'm just gonna fall apart, right? It's stuff, 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 stuff. And over time, there's a few things that are little resets, I call them, to settle that emotional fatigue I had. One of the things, back to the burnout book, is talking about, letting yourself cry. Something simple, but I got 10, just let myself do that. I'll admit I didn't do that a lot until later on, after my mom passed, but in the interim, when I was caring for my mom, these are a few things that helped. Just when you're feeling really emotionally wrung out, is to help calm your body first so that your mind can follow. And little breathing exercises, little mini escapes, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. If you can't get out of your home, it's going to a window, it's just sitting just in sunshine. Uh, maybe not in the Pacific Northwest when it's cloudy all the time, but just remembering that that rest isn't a reward for you. I mean, it feels like a reward, but you need that to maintain, to keep going. One of the other things, again, back to if your parents in a care home, or if they're out of a hospital stay, these are things I've learned that can help reduce the stress on the system, which can then alleviate some of your stress. Overall, I would say preparation is really key. And again, oftentimes we do these things because, it's an emergency, something happens and we hadn't thought about it. But if we could prepare, these are some things I would say have been very helpful. If you've been around Parkinson's for a little while, you may, and care, doctors, nurses, others in hospitals or the long-term care system, you may have realized you might sometimes, and this isn't a knock at the healthcare system, but you sometimes might be the most knowledgeable person in the room about Parkinson's. So don't be afraid of creating an about me sheet or whatever for your parent, to accompany them to the hospital or to post in their bedroom if they're at a care home. These medical teams need to be reminded about the importance of medication timing. They need to be reminded about things about your parent that, don't take that for granted, that they know that. Another thing, if you're concerned about consistency of care, try to visit your parent at different times of day and on weekends. This proved to be very eye-opening for me during those years. And finally, again, don't be afraid to ask questions. I lacked confidence when we first started the journey in long-term care, and when doctors or nurses kind of pushed me away or dismissed me. I just shied away. But after time and practice, I learned better ways to communicate, and my confidence grew, which then got me more answers from the staff who cared for my mom. So being very specific about asking questions is a great tool. And it's important through all of this that you know how much you can carry, or you're going to find that your life gets quickly out of balance. As everything I keep saying, you're probably going to learn this by trial and error, or you may have to learn this by trial and error like I did. So here I am. I just thought I'd put this slide up. Here I am on this Asgard 2. It was an Irish tall ship taking part in a 10-day tall ships race from Italy to Belgium. Is literally one of the most thrilling experiences of my life. And at one point in the middle of the Atlantic, us trainee sailors were asked to climb the yards, which just means ascending the vertical rigging, you know, up to that horizontal wooden spar that crosses the mast. And I wasn't afraid of climbing up initially, but once I got up and that ship started swaying back and forth, I'll admit I got a wee bit nervous. But thankfully, we all had these safety harnesses. So once we got up there, we could clip in onto the yard. And once I clipped in, I looked out and I was like, wow, that view up there was phenomenal. That blue ocean was incredible. And it just kind of reminds me when I think about that, about finding balance in my life and with my mom and how I learned, you know, it was often wobbly, unsteady times, but eventually, you know, I found my footing and we both, I had a much more fulfilling life with Parkinson's. When I think back, there are many examples that I could give about balance, too many to list today, but one thing which probably all of you on this call or on this, you're watching this later might relate to is balancing on and off times. And that was one of the first things that I had to learn balance for. We typically talk about Parkinson's being very unpredictable, right? That makes it tricky to plan for. But after a while, we got to kind of know when mom's typical on and off times are and were. And if you've been caring for some time, you know, like it's every day is different, but you sort of kind of might get a rhythm. And we just got better at planning, you know, for times when mom might be shut down. So for example, we learned ways to prevent her getting frazzled or stressed out, because that would immediately shut her down, right? So you get her stressed, you rush her, and instantly she's frozen. We never rushed her. Well, I did at the beginning, but I learned not to rush her later on. And we allotted a lot of extra time to do anything, like going to an appointment or an outing. I wasn't a master at this by any means, but here's a novel idea. I tried to go with the flow and see where the day took us sometimes, because I thought, you know, later, well, if we had been late for that appointment, you know, it wasn't the end of the world, right? But it did feel like it in the moment. But honestly, that balance of flexibility over control is really important. Balancing help versus independence. That's a tough one for me. As mom's PD progressed, I noticed myself doing things like I just grab her wheelchair and not throw her in there, but I wanted to push her to the destination, even though she could still walk a little bit, and she just needed a lot more time for that. Other times I would notice her struggling to do something and I just would take over. I realized later that was just due to my wanting to control the situation because I couldn't control Parkinson's. Independence and keeping their autonomy is really important, and I needed to learn to support that without erasing that autonomy. So yeah, this last example of balancing I want to talk about today is loss and joy. And again, in the later stages of Parkinson's that was a big one for me. And as mom developed dementia on top of Parkinson's, as I said earlier, we made that difficult decision to place mom in long-term care. And if you've experienced dementia in your family, you know how excruciating it can be to watch them lose parts in front of you, lose parts of themselves in front of you. Grief would just sneak up on me, and anytime there might be something for me to be happy about, it felt like I was being disloyal to my mom. But then in like a random moment, something would make me laugh, right? And maybe you can relate to that. Um, it's this weird thing, right? Allowing grief and joy to coexist. And I don't know if I ever mastered that, but I'll tell you, there was a moment, there were many moments, but this was one that my sister caught on camera. Uh, that was a moment of joy. My mom has dementia here. It's a Thanksgiving dinner, and but she still maintained her sense of humor throughout her dementia. I believe this is the moment when I jokingly said there wasn't going to be any dessert. There was no pumpkin pie for dessert, and my mom was not happy about that. Anyways, this idea of these joy moments in amongst the sadness that we were experiencing. This slide I wanted to include for those, again, that may be struggling with a parent in long-term care, or perhaps your parent is late-stage Parkinson's and they might be living at home with you. If you have a care partner, if you've been a care partner for any length of time, you've probably heard somebody say this: don't forget to ask for help. Sorry, it's just I heard that a lot. I can't make you ask for help, but I'll tell you this: once you learn how to, it can mean a world of a difference. And the key thing is to learn that it can be small things, right? Small asks can add up over time. And whether it's asking your friend or a fellow support group person, for advice on, I need a lawyer or a, elder law attorney, or to help me set up those papers. What directives do I need? What is all that? Because all that was new to me. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, what? And it was helpful to find out from, some people who had been there. I might ask just for 10 minutes. I'm like, can you just listen to me vent for 10 minutes? Um, framing it so that it's not this huge ask. Another thing was when I had bad days, which there were many, I connect with a friend or ask them, hey, could we, go out for coffee? And then I'd say, I'll treat you or something. It was sort of me giving back. So I didn't always feel like I was asking them for a favor. And one of the things that really helped me, and I've talked about this in other talks about my mom being helped by music. I have now many playlists. Probably all you out there have playlists if you listen to music. And I find different titles for different ones. At that time, when my mom was in long-term care, I had a strong playlist, something that I needed, like courage to walk into a nursing home where I didn't know what was going to be there for me to find. And I just had my little titanium song that I would cue up every time in the car before I would go in. And it was just something small, but it got me to get over that next to the next hurdle. So you just got to find what works best for you. And speaking of you, many of us use calendars and on our phones and physical planners and chalkboards in the kitchen, et cetera, et cetera. But my question is, how much of time on that calendar that you look at has got you on there, right? You have probably a big, long to-do list that is overwhelming at times, but I promise you, you won't get anything done well if you don't stop and put some time on there for you. Even 10 minutes, right, can make a difference. Again, it's thinking of this as the long game, right? You need to keep stacking these little bits of time for yourself. Daily goals, small daily goals, like I'm going to add 10 minutes of exercise, or I'm going to spend 10 minutes doing my favorite creative thing, whatever that is, playing piano or going and doing my scrapbooking or writing or whatever that is. And when you are stuck, it's helpful, I found, to have like a reset starting ritual, or, like putting your shoes right next to the door if you're, aiming to do that walk, or the yoga mat next to your bed if you're going to do that in the morning for 10 minutes. But it's that cue, like ready, set, go. Um, all these things can help. And just doing that one thing well can be a big a power move, as I like to call it. Now, it wouldn't be right if I didn't mention connection here because it's so vital to your self-care. It's really is. And again, this is a talk in itself, but think of it as medicine. So here are a couple examples I took from a path pointers in my book to get you started, but 2 weekly touch points. So whether it's a call, a class, going for coffee, pick two things and, maybe with a family member, a friend, a coworker, someone that you enjoy spending time with. Then I want you to pick two lanes, like one for Parkinson's, and something purely for fun. So you can't just do everything all week long about, I know you want to, and it's like, I have to, but one thing for fun, purely fun. Keep a laugh list. Always so good. Really good for me, really good for my mom as well at that when I was caring for her. For me, it's just having a little Nate Bargatze clip ready to go on my phone, cracks me up every time, whatever that is. But keep that list handy. You never know when you need to break open for emergency. Designing your resilient circle. So write a little list of like, who are your people that that are great listeners, people in your life that you can talk to anytime and that you just really lend an ear. Two people that are really good practical helpers. And again, these may not be friends or family. They could be someone like at your church or some place that you're involved with in your community, a neighbor. And then one person that might make you laugh all the time do you have a go-to person that you just cracks you up, right? Write that down and understand that those folks, that connection is what's going to keep restoring you. And the opposite, being isolated, is gonna drain you. Here's a example of me and my mom doing something we both love, which was being in the water. And this had nothing to do with Parkinson's. This was just love these moments that I got to have with her. So speaking of being grateful, I realize there's so much written about gratitude and many resources to go to if you want to deep dive into this topic. So go ahead, and you probably already have. It's the gratitude craze these days. That being said, I would be mistaken if I didn't mention how crucial it is that we find something to be grateful for, even in the midst of life's pains and struggles. And here are these 3 Gs that I talk about in my book that I find very helpful. So I've got ground, gratitude, and goodwill. So the ground, name a sensation. So something that you smell, something that you feel, maybe it's that cozy blanket, something gratitude, something that happened today or a person, maybe it was a text you got, something that you can be thankful for. And then goodwill, someone that you're wishing well for. I think these are things that, again, whether you do that nightly or in the morning, whatever time practice you like to do your gratitude practice, can be very, very helpful. Another thing I found really interesting when I was doing research for my book was this idea of savoring. So I'm not talking about like eating, savoring, but although I do like savoring my desserts, it's this idea of staying in a moment, like for 10 or 20 seconds, like elongating something that's good, pause on something, just like it's a warm mug or sunlight or a kind text, and just really let yourself feel good in that moment. And then finally, a strong, happy playlist. I got the strong one already, right? Now it's that happy playlist. What are those songs that get you going and that just make you feel good, right? I know you know that there's a song that does it for you. So put that down and put it on your playlist and have that at the ready when you need a little boost. I just love this quote about gratitude. Just gonna let it sit there. So I want to encourage you, in general, and that you are making a difference in your parents' life. And if you can keep setting boundaries or start setting boundaries if you haven't started, taking steps to prevent burnout, maintain balance, you can live a fulfilling life as a daughter or son of a person with Parkinson's. Remember, things grow in steady, slow, small steps. So, as I start to wrap up, I want you to think about the boundaries you may need to create and to pay attention to signs of burnout you may be experiencing. Notice if there's parts of your life that are out of balance, right? You probably already do. If you know that, you're like, yeah, it's way over one side. And pick one in each of those areas and start on them today. Like today. I hope you know by now that this statement right here is crucial for you to take in. Repeat it like over and over. Self-care is not a luxury. It is a necessity. I'm being your parent now. I'm telling you, this is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Don't let don't let your parent care, the care that you're giving your parent, get in the way of your own self-care. And with that, I'm going to finish with a short 1-minute video that reminds me of the importance of taking care of ourselves. This video was taken when Dave, my mom's second husband, was battling, actually, sadly, 2 forms of cancer at once. He had skin cancer and colon cancer. You'll see it in the video that he's got a bandage on his head. And none of us knew how long he might have to live. Honestly, we didn't, he didn't have a lot of time. He was getting chemo. Mom was living in long-term care at this point, and she was separated from Dave. She had dementia and was unaware of Dave's illness, but you'll see she still had love for Dave and he for her. Anyway, I'm sharing this with you. It makes me a little sad, but it also reminds me that I made a difference in helping them bring this together, this moment together, and for them to share this moment, because ultimately it ended up being the last one where they were. And now I do like to envision them having this dance together in heaven, but here we go.
Every minute, every day and night, and I just want you to know that whatever you do and wherever you go, remember someone loves you, honey. No matter what, just be like girl. Someone loves you, honey, more than anything in the world. I'm so
Thank you for indulging me for that 1-minute video, and thank you for sticking me until the end. As a little thank you, I'd like to share some path pointers from my new book, The Parkinson's Path. I know on my journey with my mom, especially in the later stages, that I felt lost at times, and I wish someone would show me the way. So hopefully these tips and the others you'll find in my book will help you find your way. And here, you can see there's a little QR code there that'll take you to Amazon. I love it when people email me questions or comments, because I do these talks on Zoom and I don't get to talk to you. So when I do talks in person, people can come up to me and talk to me. So please feel free to email me. I would love to hear from you. And of course, you can visit my websites. There's also a link in the resources to the Amazon and to my links. And finally, stay tuned. I hope you'll join me in my next Caregiving with Confidence series talk. When distance stands between you and your parent with Parkinson's, you can find that, you may find worry and guilt feel overwhelming. In this next session, I'll share what I learned while supporting my mom through Parkinson's, sometimes from hundreds of miles away. So I'm going to give you some practical real life strategies. I'm going to talk about the emotional weight of long distance caregiving, and then walk you through some of the ways to stay connected, coordinate some support team, and give yourself the grace you deserve. So I hope to see you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lianna, and thank you to our audience. We have received some great questions and comments. I'm really excited to share them with you all. So, first question, Lianna, is from someone who said that her mom needs help to get ready for bed, but she can do a lot of things herself. And the things her mom needs help with take her in and out of her mom's room for about an hour during the late evening. And she's asked, how do I get evening time with my husband a few nights a week?
So just to clarify, you're trying to get more time? Is that the
Yeah,
thing? No,
that looks like the thing, maybe to get sort of maybe some uninterrupted, like a block of time, in the evening with her husband.
Yeah, and without knowing, so her mom is in late stage, or I don't know where.
It doesn't say, it just says she needs help to get ready for bed,
Yeah.
but she can still do a lot of things
Really do a
herself.
lot. You know
Yeah.
what's interesting is that and it's kind of a sad sidebar story, but Mom and Dave, what led them to separating, which was the unfortunate part, Parkinson's got a little bit in between them. And looking back, we were thinking that a lot of that started because my mom wouldn't do the things that she could do on her own. Like, so she just sort of, she gave it to me or gave it to Dave, when in fact she could have still been doing a lot of things for herself. We felt that maybe we could have, not been in long-term care as early as we were, had it weren't for this cooperation from the care receiver. And that involves a difficult conversation, doesn't it? Because for various different reasons, and only you know your parent best, but for various different reasons, people can take that care receiver role on to the max, if you will, and like, oh well, I'm just gonna kick back and you break. And again, I don't mean any disrespect, because my mom was not like this, but I think she did take advantage of it from time to time, and it is tough. It was ultimately my aunt who had the tough conversation with her, my mom's sister. And I don't know if this person can have this conversation with their mom, or if it's something that's really important, you may have to broach that topic, which is, hey, mom, I noticed that there's some things that you could, like, forgive me, I don't want, I'm not the master of social work like Anushka and Rosa here, but framing that conversation so that it's a win-win, right? So help me help you line, right? Because this time with my husband is going to make me better for you, mom, right? Ultimately, that's how we want to frame things. So it's not like, I don't want to help you, mom. Two things, right? Giving her that autonomy. You can still do this. Like, let's keep doing the things that we can keep doing over time. This is going to make a difference in your life, and it's going to help me show up for you long term. Because, let's be honest, we hope at least that we have a long time with you, mom, right? We want to have a long time with you. But in order for that to happen, we want to set these boundaries, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting. We have another question from someone that it's really similar. This person has a spouse with Parkinson's, and she says, my husband often asks me to help him do things that he is able to do. How do I determine if I should help or let him struggle a little? He tends to like having people help him in general. So I don't always know if it's his personality or if he really needs the help physically.
Yeah, that's a great question, because we were talking about that. I was talking about that earlier, like letting my mom, it's that balance of like acknowledging, is this me wanting control over the situation which in my case it was like I just wanted to do everything. It's going to be faster. I'm going to do it. In this case, she's saying, I'm struggling with that. Do I let him? What does he want? And that's a decision for both of you because again, are you getting burnt out by doing everything for this person, right? For your husband? Again, it's all those things. It's not one thing, it's all the things added up over time that ends up burning us out. So it might be worth a conversation. And again, saying what you're okay with doing, noting that he can still do that thing, right? Hey, how about help you with dinner, but you do whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's that exchange. It's almost like, well, because it is a partnership, not just being a husband and wife, but the what's going to be on your plate, what's on my plate. And those difficult conversations, I mean, it doesn't have to be difficult. Sometimes they aren't. It's just a matter of depends on the personality of your spouse too, right? If they're like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Or if they're fighting you and saying, no, you need to do everything, then that's when you have to put out, well, here's what I can do and when. But it is interesting, isn't it, how often that comes up where spouses are whether either. So anyway, thank you for that question.
Yeah. And you've shared some just incredible stories of your experience with your mom. And Kevin made a comment in the chat. He said something that was really helpful for him. He said, keeping a sense of humor has been extremely beneficial. Can you speak to that at all?
100%. 100%. So I'm laughing right now because I'm thinking of those laugh out loud moments with my mom, and that later when she had dementia, that she somehow miraculously still had her witty sense of humor. And even before she developed dementia, one of the things, and I talk about this in my other talks for caregiving, is that having that laugh list or the things to watch. So that's my remind myself to laugh. But then there's also the sense of humor of, and I've only learned this later as I mature, about taking life a little less, or taking myself a little less seriously, maybe, that in moments, something can be funny. It's not making light of Parkinson's, because I get it. Parkinson's isn't funny, but it can be funny. Dementia can be funny sometimes. Some of the things that happen. And I agree. While we're still living and breathing, we need to be grateful. And for many, humor has been a way to get them through that next thing, right? That next hurdle in life of with Parkinson's. And so good on you. I'm glad that you're using humor. It was Kevin that was using that, and whatever that looks like. I have my Dave had a lot of friends overseas in England, and they had a funny humor over there, that we had some funny jokes that I can't repeat here, but that he found helped him. So whatever makes you laugh, go find that thing.
Absolutely. And you may speak about this in an upcoming episode, but we have a question from Laura, and she's asked, do you have ideas for finding a driver to help with driving the person with Parkinson's to appointments and rehabilitation? She says that local vans for the elderly or persons with disabilities haven't really worked out so far.
Right. You know what? That's a really good question, because I wish I could see people right now. But wasn't there like an Uber, or I'd have to Google this or whatever, GPT this. I feel like there's one of those bigger Uber or Lyft that was adding on a senior specific. Do you know of that, Anishka? I feel like there might.
I do. I believe that Uber and Lyft do have resources specifically for this. I would encourage any viewers to check out APDA's YouTube channel. We have an episode of Unlocking Strength Within that talks exactly about this alternative solutions for people who are no longer driving. So again, that's on APDA's Unlocking Strength Within.
Perfect.
Yeah, there's a resource that we spotlight called Rides in Sight that can help people find transportation if they can't be the one to drive their parent to all of their appointments because they're working full time.
Excellent. Excellent.
And I have another question. And again, this may be something that you speak about in another episode, but the question is, what is the best way to support my other parent? Like, for example, there was, Dave, and I'm sure, how do you all support Dave when he was living in the same space as your mom as her primary care partner?
And that, yeah, that is a talk in itself. And I hope that, to touch on that in one of our future talks, but supporting a parent, yeah, honestly, the first thing when I think back about it is learning more about that person. In my case, it was a stepdad, right? So what made him, he was not an overly patient person to begin with. Can I say that nicely? So Parkinson's really pulled him, that part of him, and once I knew that about him a little bit more, I could help stave off some of that by shifting some of the responsibilities over to me, or things that were really taking mom an exorbitant amount of time, that I'm like, Dave, you do not need to be doing this. I will be that person for that piece. Or oh gosh, yeah, there are a lot of things I think we didn't do well. Again, I can laugh about it now, but it's not funny. It's just that you learn by doing, and supporting him sometimes meant saying, no, that's not okay how you're treating mom. I hate to say that, but sometimes I needed to say, and that's when they did take a break from each other, because they were just Parkinson's got in the middle of the two of them. So that's the worst case scenario, right? So supporting would look different than what I did sometimes, and we would have had those conversations sooner about responsibilities and what mom could still do, instead of letting her just, hey, Dave, do everything for me, right? Have those conversations sooner. And giving mom some, what, even though you might not be able to motor around, you still talking, you can still do things for Dave. You can still have that love for him that looks like a massage, a shoulder massage or whatever, and talking those two, like almost like a therapist, like, hey, here's how you guys can keep that love alive. And that's how I supported them sometimes, was sending them out on a romantic dinner, or creating that atmosphere for them. So in that last video was, again, getting them together so that they could have a dance together. So that's how, little things here and there helped, I guess, support Dave.
Thank you. I think so much good food for thought in your presentation today. And, just so excited to hear more from you at your next episode. So I want to remind all of our viewers that APDA is fortunate enough to have Lianna join us again on February 26th for her next episode of Caring with Confidence. And she's going to be talking about caring from afar for a parent with Parkinson's disease, long distance caregiving. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Lianna, so much for sharing your personal story and your firsthand experience with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And everyone, again, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at a future APDA program. And please register today for Lianna's next episode on February 26th. And also, we have an episode just next week of APDA's Let's Keep Moving. And we'll hope to see you at a future program. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
I'm Leslie Chambers, President and CEO of the American Parkinson Disease Association. Thank you so much for joining us today on our program. Every day, APDA is committed to providing helpful programs just like this one, as well as a wide variety of support groups, exercise classes, and educational programs to support the Parkinson's disease community. Whether online or in person, APDA is here for you every step of the way. You can find all of our upcoming virtual events on our website at apdaparkinson.org/events. We keep you posted on our social media channels as well, so make sure you follow us there. You can also connect to local resources and events through our nationwide network of chapters and information and referral centers. Remember, we're just a click or a phone call away. If you've enjoyed today's broadcast, I hope you will consider making a donation to help keep programs like this possible. Every gift, large or small, helps APDA support people living with PD through thoughtful programming, reliable resources, groundbreaking research, and more. Please visit apdaparkinson.org/donate today to support our critical work for those with Parkinson's. We are so grateful for your generosity. Thank you.